Lesson 3. Vehicles Maneuvering Characteristics. In this lesson, you will, among other things, be introduced to the terminology and expressions that are used in the theory test. You will learn about different maneuvering characteristics of a vehicle. You will learn how to observe the whole traffic situation so that you timely identify and assess any possible risks and dangers. Maneuvering characteristics include speed and control characteristics of the vehicle. Vehicle speed characteristics include A. The capability of the vehicle to accelerate or the time in which the vehicle can accelerate up to a particular speed. B. Maximum movement speed of a vehicle. C. The capability of the vehicle to brake or the time in which the vehicle can come to a full stop. Control characteristics of a vehicle include A. How quickly does the vehicle react to when the steering wheel is turned? B. How stable is the car when driven in a straight line? C. How sensitive is the vehicle to crosswinds? Control characteristics of a vehicle mainly depend on the division of weight to the front and back tires. Vehicles with weight placed on the back wheels are more susceptible to crosswind and are harder to oversteer, i.e., they react stronger to the turns of the steering wheel. The direction is less stable while they are easier to control. On the other hand, vehicles where the weight is placed at the front wheels are harder to understeer, i.e., they react worse to turns of the steering wheel. They are less sensitive to crosswinds and are more stable in straight-line driving. In case the vehicle skids to the outer side in a bend and makes a larger angle than it should be, we call this understeer. In case the vehicle skids towards the inside of the bend and makes a sharper angle than it should be, then it is a matter of oversteer. Adequate observation of traffic situation depends on a number of factors, including, for example, the shape of the car body, loud music from the radio or the loud noise of the engine. Both impact the driver's attention. Blind spots of the vehicle, which can hide the other vehicle that are coming from behind, also significantly impact the traffic visibility. The visibility is greatly hindered by dirty windows, rear-view mirrors, and headlights. How many cyclists is there in front of you? There are 2 cyclists. Look at the shadow on the road. Passenger vehicles and vans are among some of the fastest vehicles in terms of acceleration and speeds, while they also have the best braking capabilities. You can recognize some particular types of sports vehicles due to their low profile and width as well as wide tires. In terms of maneuvering characteristics of a vehicle, the high speed that it can produce is not the most important thing. It is about its acceleration characteristics. Always take into consideration the acceleration characteristics of your vehicle when starting from a parking position and when overtaking. For example, when choosing a lane at an intersection when you need to come to a stop at red traffic light. If the truck bus, tractor, or some other slower vehicle are in one lane, consider changing lanes to another lane. Stability of the straight line driving and sensitivity to crosswinds can vary depending on the structure and the shape of the car body and car's load. All vehicles have blind spots due to the shape of windows, rearview mirrors, and car body. Front and back window frames, as well as side windows frames, make blind spots on the left and right-hand side. Back frames make blind spots that can completely hide the vehicle from the left or right-hand side. When assessing the traffic situation, also take a look across your shoulder. If the vehicle is in the blind spot behind you, you will not notice it in the outer rearview mirror. Dirty windows covered in soil and mud, snow, hail, etc. greatly reduce the driver's visibility. Take into consideration the ability that other drivers have for making a judgment of the traffic situation, especially in terms of blind spots when you are driving in heavy traffic, before you change lanes, before overtaking, and when you are driving through an intersection. In this situation, the window frame is making a blind spot and hides the cyclist. The cyclist is visible again. Back glass is covered in snow and it is against the law and irresponsible to drive a car in this condition. Do you see the vehicle on the left-hand side? It is hidden in the blind spot. The window frame can also hide a vehicle. Pay attention to the blue car. The window frame is hiding it. Trucks and buses. In comparison to the passenger vehicles, trucks accelerate slower and their capabilities for braking are lower. You must be aware of these facts, especially in situations when you are approaching from behind a truck or a bus that is changing lanes. Also be careful when the truck or bus is behind you, in case you need to unexpectedly brake. Exactly for this reason, trucks often drive in convoys. You must be particularly careful when you want to overtake them. All trucks have a smaller maximum speed than cars. In built-up areas, the speed limit for trucks is 50 km per hour, regardless of the speed limits in the area. Because the trucks are heavier and have longer axles, they are not very sensitive to crosswinds and have a stable movement. Still, trucks with a higher trailer, when they are free of load or have a light load, become sensitive to crosswinds. Medium and large trucks require lots of extra space in order to turn or carry out other maneuvers. In this situation, you must allow the truck sufficient space so that they can carry out the desired maneuver. The yellow lines on the road are usually used when there is a roadwork In this case, the yellow line marks the place where you must stop in order to allow the vehicle that is turning towards you sufficient space to carry out the turn. Trucks with a higher trailer, when they are free of load or have light load, can be sensitive to crosswinds, which you should pay attention to, especially when crossing a bridge when strong winds are blowing. A truck with a trailer requires more space when carrying out any maneuvers. In this situation, you must reduce your speed, move your vehicle as far as possible to the side to leave enough space to the truck driver to complete their maneuver. View from the truck cabin from the driver's seat. Trucks have even more blind spots, and they are even bigger in comparison to the blind spots of vehicles. Their large outer rearview mirrors can create blind spots on the left or right-hand side so that the driver cannot see the smaller vehicles. Truck driver also has a poor overview of the traffic situation behind them because the trailer covers the view through the back window. You must have in mind these facts when you are overtaking or changing lanes behind a truck. It is important that you do not remain in a blind spot of a truck for too long because the driver cannot see you in case he wishes to change lanes. The truck cabin is usually soundproofed so the driver is not in the position to hear the rest of the traffic. Cars with a trailer are often slower, have poor acceleration and noticeably lower capability of braking than a car without a trailer. When in traffic, you need to treat them as you treat trucks. The conditions to assess the traffic situation are very restricted, especially with vehicles with a camp trailer, because the drivers are not used to driving using only rearview mirrors. This is why you require time to consider and assess possible risk factors and to treat a vehicle with trailer same as you treat trucks in traffic. Tractors have a good acceleration but also a low maximum speed of 40 km per hour. Therefore, on their back end there must be a red triangle which marks that the vehicle is moving slowly. Tractors often have worse capabilities when it comes to braking than other vehicles due to many tractors not being able to brake with only 2 wheels, while some tractor trailers have no brakes. Sudden braking of a tractor with a trailer while moving can lead to the tractor flipping upside down. Pay attention to the following. Low tractor speed, for example, when the tractor is approaching from the side roads or intersections and when driving on a non-asphalt road. Poor braking capability. For example, when a tractor doesn't have a right-of-way, you cannot be sure that the tractor will always be able to brake in time and allow you to pass. In this situation, you must be ready to brake. Tractor has poor braking capabilities. When viewing from a distance, the driver can by mistake think that the tractor is actually a truck. From a distance, the difference can be noted only by the triangle on the back end and the speed at which it is moving. Tractors with hookup equipment are not stable and can sway during the drive. Tractors with a trailer have the same undesirable characteristics as vehicles with trailers. Pay attention to tractors' poor stability, for example, in sharp bends. They tend to skid and sway, same as vehicles with trailers, and that is why you must allow them with sufficient room for maneuvering. Tractors with trailers or with front and back hookup equipment can have an obscured view of the traffic situation. It is harder for the tractor driver to hear sound signals than it is for other vehicles due to the loud noise of the engine. Have all this in mind when you drive next to a tractor. Some older tractor models do not have blinkers and the driver often has to give a signal using his arms when turning. Have this in mind when you are driving next to a tractor. Tractors with additional equipment can be wider than other vehicles, which means they are harder to overtake. Front wheels of some tractors with front additional equipment can be lifted during the drive, which further makes driving difficult. Motorcycle. Motorcycles are very fast vehicles. Their acceleration is often significantly higher than of a passenger vehicle. Motorcycles usually have lower braking capabilities because it is hard to master the correct braking techniques. Braking on a slippery or wet road often leads to skidding or falling off the motorcycle. When you are driving in front of or behind a motorcycle, have in mind the characteristics of the motorcycle's acceleration, maximum speed, as well as poor braking capabilities. Scooter is a type of smaller and slower motorcycle. Scooter has similar tires, smaller body, and the registration plate looks different. It is often hard to differentiate between standard motorcycles and scooters. Take a place behind the motorcycle in an intersection because the motorcycle has a higher acceleration than a vehicle. Large and heavy motorcycles are more stable than smaller ones, but regardless of the size and weight, motorcycles are very sensitive to crosswinds. Have this in mind when you are approaching or overtaking a motorcycle at strong crosswinds, especially because motorcycles change lanes quickly. In this situation, you should move as far right as possible and adjust your speed before approaching the motorcycle. Motorcycles with trailers on the side are less stable and can skid to the right when accelerating and to the left side during braking. When turning right, there is a risk of lifting off the trailer. When turning left, the back wheels of the motorcycle may lift. Have this in mind when you are driving towards or overtaking a motorcycle with a trailer. Motorcycle with a trailer on the back side can sway in the same way cars with a trailer do. Helmet, visor, protective sunwear frames, and windshield make it more difficult for the motorcycle driver to assess the traffic situation. Protective sunglasses and visor must be clean. Any dirt, rain, or mist on the sunglasses reduces the visibility. Motorcyclists who drive without windshield or protective sunglasses often close their eyes or turn their head, which additionally reduces the visibility. Motorcyclists who drive without rearview mirror must turn their head very often or their entire bodies in order to get a picture of the traffic situation. Therefore, you should be very careful when driving behind a motorcycle. It is these reasons that you should be additionally careful when driving behind a motorcyclist. Also, motorcyclists find it harder to hear the sounds coming from the traffic because of the helmet they are wearing. Motorcyclists often change lanes unexpectedly. In this situation, you have reduced the speed to 35 to 40 kilometers per hour because of a bend. How will you proceed? You must move completely to the right curb in order to avoid a collision. Doing so, you do not need to additionally reduce your speed. Passengers who are sitting on the back seat of a motorcycle and who are not familiar to riding on a motorcycle can make it more difficult for the driver to turn, as they will not lean to the side that the driver intends to turn to. Scooters that need to be registered have the same acceleration characteristics as the larger motorcycles, even though their maximum speed is a lot lower at 45 km per hour. You can easily mix them up with smaller motorcycles. The difference is in the registration plates. Scooter has smaller registration plates. Smaller scooters with a maximum speed of up to 30 km per hour can be driven on a bicycle lane. In order to drive a scooter that develops a maximum speed of 45 km per hour, you need a Category B driver's license. Such scooters are not allowed to be driven on freeways. Some scooters are illegally modified so that they can go significantly faster than prescribed. Scooters have poor braking characteristics. During stronger braking, it can easily lead to upside-down flips. Scooters are sensitive to crosswinds and are not particularly stable in the straight drive. When the scooter driver turns his head, this automatically impacts the movement stability. Sensitivity to crosswinds is particularly noticed when driving with a large luggage. Sensitivity to crosswind is the same as with standard motorcycles. The driver of the scooter has the same difficulties when assessing the traffic situation as the motorbike driver, mainly because of the helmet. This is especially if the helmet visor is damaged or dirty. The drivers experience additional difficulties if they want to assess the traffic situation by turning their head, as this affects their stability. Bicycles. Bicycles are in the slower vehicles category, even though there are differences among them. Racing bicycles can often be faster than a scooter. Bicycles have poor braking capabilities. Every harder braking creates a risk of skidding and falling upside down. Bicycles are not stable during a straight drive and are sensitive to crosswinds, although they are less unstable while moving and while driving slowly. Body movements and head movements significantly affect the bicycle's stability. In case the bicycle rider is driving a child or a larger load, that too increases the instability. In this situation, the cyclist is on the move and is not respecting the right-of-way rule. You must allow her to pass even though she should give way to you. Cyclist has a very good possibility of assessing the situation as well as good overview of the traffic, although turning the head and body can affect the stability. Inappropriate clothes, for example, jacket with a large hood, can impact the visibility of the traffic situation. In poor weather conditions, for example wind, rain or snow, cyclists squint their eyes or turn their heads to the side, which affects the visibility of the traffic situation.